It is morning here on the Oregon Trail. Up low power on my watch battery. But it's morning here on the Oregon Trail. And I'm actually retracing the route of the Columbia River now, going that way. And I kind of like diverge south whenever it reaches the Snake River. That's it. This really cool overlook here. The Rowena? Yep. The Rowena Crest. Neat little park that's, kind of like on historic Route 30, the old Lincoln Highway. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And I just did a little video over here, if you could just look, and it's just kind of like, it's like a little cliff, and it overlooks this little bend here, this little swoop that the engineers, went the other way, that they kind of like put in here, as you could see, looking down from this overlook. So, time to move on, and I shall do that. But I gotta get something to eat. I'm hungry. Well, on another trail here, the Blue Mountain Crossing of the Oregon Trail. We've come to like a little visitor center, like an interpretive center, out in the middle of nowhere. And one of the great things about this is I've decided to take Interstate 84 for a while, which is due east from Portland, and it is the Oregon Trail. And, a lot of different towns and rest stops that you can come along and stop at along the way are interpretive centers for the trail. It's kind of like the old National Road in Ohio and Pennsylvania, where Interstate 70 kind of like mirrors it. But you got to come 3 miles off of the interstate to come here. And it is really pretty cool. You can hear the interstate in the distance, possibly, not really sure. But I've decided to come out here and show everybody what this place is all about. There are 2 different trails that are out here. There's like an old wagon road, and then the Oregon Trail, which pioneers and settlers left Independence, Missouri, and would head out towards Oregon, looking for a new place to live and thinking that the vastness of the land can sustain them, and it could sustain them for a while. That is, until so many people come out and actually started not able to use the land to the best of its potential. If you read a lot about back east, a lot of the Virginia planters and other planters in other states like the Carolinas and Georgia were very land rich but cash poor. They didn't necessarily know how to make money on their property. A lot of the immigrants did, though. The Germans who settled in Pennsylvania and in Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, they knew how to do crop rotation and what crops did the best for the soils and time. So they really kind of like made the most of their land. So we're going to take this little loop trail called the Independence Loop Trail, and it's going to put us on areas of like the old Stagecoach Road, and then I think cutting over to the actual Oregon Trail itself. Now, one of the things you can see right off the bat is on the other side of this tree, there's like a ravine here between the tree and that fallen tree. And that is actually a cut from the old Stagecoach Road from 1861. So you can see how just, use for so many years just kind of like cut a little path into the hillside and into the landscape. So we're going to continue on down this trail and see what else there is to see. Now, I read in one of the brochures here and on one of the signs that some of the trees here actually date back to the time of the usage of the Oregon Trail, the early 19th century, until, train travel actually, became kind of like the norm. So some of these enormous trees that are around here, they're actually witness trees. And they also help basically date the last usage of the trails. And the reason why is because then there are trees that are growing up in the middle of the trails, and they can, you measure the circumference of the tree and find out how old it is, and then determine, I want to say around the 1880s, that's when the Oregon Trail was not necessarily used as much as it was. But if you can imagine bringing your entire family out here with a few wagons going anywhere between 2 to 4 miles per hour, I don't know, it seems pretty slow. Heck, 4 mile an hour might seem a little bit fast, not really sure. But loading everything you had and coming overland. And when I mean everything, I'm talking about furniture, which you'd probably get rid of over time, either burn it or just get rid of it because it was so heavy and cumbersome and you didn't necessarily need it out here. Figuring, you know what, you're gonna be rich, you'll just buy more out there. To all the food that you would need all the equipment to cook that food, weapons, ammunition for the entire journey. This is the wilderness. You're certainly not gonna be stopping at a store or a settler to get any of that stuff. So, you'd have to plan probably a lot more than the trip that I just made, planning, before you just came out here and said, hey, I'm gonna go check all this stuff out. I'm gonna go make a lot of money, and I'm gonna go help settle the West and have a new life. So, that's pretty incredible. Still walking down this stagecoach road. It's pretty wild. Really cut into the ground. And so now this depression is not the Stagecoach Road. This is actually the Oregon Trail of 1843. And undoubtedly one of the interpretive sites here that they have is they have a wagon. And got some stumps here. Might do some interpretive talks here. The park, the state forest. You have a little campfire, little grave in the distance, a cairn, but probably something that would have been a staple around here is like a litter of bleached bones, as you can imagine. How many animals that you would go through out here, just the wear and tear. One of the things that they said was they can bring mules, but they preferred ox, and the reason why is that ox were smoother, less stubborn, more stable, and in the unfortunate event that they died, they can be eaten. So think about that. Equivalent of eating your car. Now up on that ridge beyond the wagon, that's where the trail actually is. And I was also struck by another thing whenever I walked out there. How many people are buried along this entire trail? How many people are probably buried in this field? In those woods, on those crests, countless men, women, and children buried in the middle of nowhere. It is from these heights that Captain Bonneville exclaimed, "The woods, woods, do you see the woods?" And therefore named the Bois Valley. But most fascinating on this site, on my following of the Oregon Trail, is the actual cut of the Oregon Trail, which cuts right to left, left to right, which we will go down now. This is the Oregon Trail. The original piece of it that just cuts through this hillside out to this interpretive center that's actually operated by the Kiwanis Club. I found this by stopping at a rest stop near exit 64 on Interstate 84 in Idaho, here in Idaho. And what you're looking at here is an original portion of the Oregon Trail. The sun is kind of going down here on this overlook. It's not even an overlook, it's just a massive hill, as you can see. Continuing to walk down, and you can see the vista is just you know, just far. But again, there's that haze. This is an evening haze. There might be weather coming in. The sun was kind of out a little bit ago, but you kind of get an idea of how desolate this area is. And what was so important about the woods was there was a river down there feeding all the trees. The river meant water and fertile land. And you can see the pagoda of that little interpretive center up there as we're going to go the other way. And what was weird is I was reading the signs on the other side telling me that it was out here. I didn't know where it was until I came to this side. And I walked right over it, not even knowing what I was looking at. But down here on the left, the one thing I found was a cross. And at first I thought, oh, somebody put up a cross. And then I started thinking, I wonder if this has something to do with, you know, I knew that the road that we're about to turn on was not the Oregon Trail. I figured it was like an access road up to this thing. But you can start to see the cross there. And believe you me, I am the only person out here tonight. There is the cross that I stumbled across. Well, that's about it for tonight. I'm going to drive another probably 120 miles onto Twin Falls, Idaho. Get a room there before I head out. Probably maybe a little bit of Salt Lake tomorrow. But you could see this view behind me just goes on and on and on. It really is spectacular. And then, of course, the cut there, and I'll grab the other side of that, and it kind of goes straight through that gate. And just in case, that's the Oregon Trail there. It's like a survey marker from the Bureau of Land Management, which operates all of this. BLM, baby. So, in any event, that's today, about 550 miles away from Portland when it's all done. Now heading east and more adventures. So, we'll talk to you later.